I can't type to begin with. So.
Please stand for the pledge. Mr. Giovanangelo?
Here.
Mr. Jim?
Here.
Mrs. Wolford? Here. Mr. Scapora?
Here.
Mr. Baldneri?
Here.
Mr. Forge?
Here.
Mayor Griffin? Present. All present. May I have somebody, motion to approve the minutes from the October 14th, 2013 meeting, please?
Madam Mayor, I move the minutes of the October 14th, 2013 meeting be approved and accepted and be permitted to remain on the Secretary's desk where they will be available for reading and inspection to anyone.
May I have a
Madam
second?
Mayor, I second the motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carried. May I have a motion for approval of the fiscal department reports?
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Okay, may I have a second?
I second, Madam
Okay,
Mayor.
all in
I
favor?
have a question on that.
Question, Michael.
This says, I should have paid more attention earlier, we're approving the bills for October and November. The horse is already out of the barn, right? The checks have already been written. And so we're just approving, we're rubber stamping bills that have already been paid and checks that have been written, whether they were budgetary items or not. Is that correct?
That's what we've always done. I mean, you have the opportunity to get out. We all have the opportunity to look at them, but ahead of
Just
time.
asking a question, is this how it's done? So we're doing business, the horse is out of the barn, checks already been written and mailed, and we're approving it whether it's been a budgetary item or not. Just want to see how we're leading to our overspending our budget, and this is one way that I think we need to change that in the future. We need to approve anything that isn't budgetary at this meeting before it goes any further, before a check's written. It should come to council. If it's not a budgetary item, I think it ought to come to council first and be approved, and then go on. It's just my opinion.
Yeah,
You ought to run business, not approving the check after it's already been written and mailed.
But a lot of these things, I think, are budgeted items, and you don't necessarily know in January and February. I mean, we're talking about paying salaries and paying things that you may not necessarily know. We'd have to identify exactly what items are not budgetary, because they could be budgetary, and we could still end up over budget come later in the year.
When we approve the budget at the beginning of the year, we give the authorization to pay those bills that come out of that budget.
Correct.
But when we overspend the budget, those bills should come to council before a check's written, in my opinion, and that doesn't happen here, is that right? We approve the bill after the check's already been written.
We've always had them.
I'm not saying we're faulting, I'm just saying I think we need to change that system.
Yeah.
So that we don't end up $330,000 in debt, spending $330,000 more than we budgeted. And the way we do that is, we approve the checks we wrote last month, this month, and that's, again, after the horse is out of the barn.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now we have citizens' requests and comments. If you have a request or a statement, you want to state your name and address, please?
Madam Mayor, Jim Gubicki, 821 Chestnut Street. In the words of Yogi Bear, deja vu all over again, I guess. I'm here again on the issues of the ticket, all stemming from the article this morning in the Tribune Review, which detailed the fact surrounding the decision of our city manager to go forward with a program that he readily admitted was not approved by council. I have a few questions and concerns regarding that. And again, going back a little bit, I think history has a chance of revealing some of the things that you don't repeat those problems over and over again. But somehow, looking back to an article dated Thursday, April 5th of 2012, and it's a Trib article by Joe Napsha. And in that article, this is right after the after you had the company in here to take a look at the parking situation, I think it's Haas, is that correct pronunciation of the firm that was here to study the parking situation? And there, at that time, is where the real flap was created over the ticket policy here. And one of the concerns was, again, that we had tickets that were being forgiven or, for a more, lack of a more tender term, fixed, as the article says. And at that time, the city manager, quote, said, "No one in City Hall will be able to dismiss a ticket for any reason," end quote. He further said, quote, "Nobody here is judge," end quote. Quote, "What right do we have to act in that role?" End quote. So I think at that point in time, and well said by Mr. Graziani on that date of April 15th, 2012, but then we turn to this morning's article, which in turn then discusses a policy that was reinstituted, or which I've done some investigation on, and looking at the record, what creates more of a problem in my mind is not necessarily a program that this council should be approving. There's no doubt about it. We need to address the situation in the parking here. And whether that means removing meters, however council approaches that, I think you're justified in what you do and need to do it. Because we continually revisit this same situation where we have a lack of public trust in how we're operating our government. And again, there may not be anything wrong with any single one of those tickets, but the fact that, again, it was done outside of council approval, outside an ordinance, and outside of any oversight by this council as a whole is problematic, in my estimation. Now, I also look at the records, and in my hand is a number of those files that actually were secured from Mr. Graziani. One of them are the City of Latrobe parking tickets issued and voided for years 2009 through 2013 up to October 30th. And in that report, and again, because the numbers this morning suggested that we were looking at 6% of tickets that were voided over this time period, that's really not true. A true reflection is when you look at the numbers, and I won't bore you with all of it other than to say in 2009 there were 5,863 tickets written in the city of Latrobe. And again, I believe there was another reason for that. I think that's the parking garage situation, if I'm not mistaken, at that time period, that it was closed. So you had quite a few tickets being written. And in that, 217 tickets had been voided, excused, forgiven, for whatever reason. And I won't question that. But in 2013, in 10 months, 2,834 tickets were written, and 215 tickets were excused, forgiven, or voided. Twice the number of tickets written, and invariably the same total, with the exception of 2 tickets, says that more were forgiven in that period of time on a basis of the numbers as far as a percentage. That was an increase of about 35 or 40% over that period of time. Again, the number 215 is where I keyed in on, because there are a number of pages with each ticket detailed, each ticket number, each license plate, the amount of the fine, the officer's badge number, whoever wrote the ticket. And on these pages, the total number of tickets actually comes up to 498. Now, I don't understand why there's a discrepancy between what's printed and what's on the report. And again, there may be an honest mistake in the process of making sure that these numbers are accurate. But again, I think it goes to the integrity of the office of the mayor, for the council, for the city manager, and so on. And so I encourage you to take a closer look at what's going on here. And again, yeah, we have a problem, but we don't need to be resolving it the way we have been, where there are a situation, whether Mr. Graziani felt compelled to do something outside of council because of pressure, because of a budget, whatever those reasons are. None of them are good enough whenever this council should be the first and foremost authority on making those decisions. Finally, one other issue. A few months ago, I believe it was back in the spring, if I'm not mistaken, in the March or April period, Mr. Graziani came before council and made a recommendation. And this again was about parking. The Latrobe Bulletin. There are 3 spaces down there that previously were metered. He came to council, requested that council consider removing the meters. The city of Latrobe then installed signage which said for parking for Bulletin only. That had been completed. And in lieu of any of those meters being there, the city would be reimbursed in like-kind services. And I may be not using exactly what Mr. Graziani said, but he did say it was a public-private partnership, so to speak, as I recollect. In that vein, great idea, and council was appraised of it. Council voted to do exactly what Mr. Graziani had suggested. Again, all fully in front of everyone here. But since then, not a single amount of that money, which should amount to $75 per space per month, for a total of $225 per month, over that period, has ever been credited against any of the business we've done at the Bulletin. And again, that's kind of, you have to look at that and say to yourself, what kind of accounting procedures do we have in place in order to account for exactly that? And I think to this end, I suggest you look back at your ordinance for this very reason, which says, Mr. Kelly, and you, if I'm wrong, I'm just going to somewhat summarize it, that there is a separate account that is established for all monies that are collected in the parking in the city of Latrobe. A separate account must be established, and those deposits must be made into that separate account. I think in hindsight, in the fact that none of this money was ever collected or in-kind services provided in the amount that is owed, that perhaps you're better off just charging the money and having it go to the account where it should be. That's all I have to say, and I thank you for your time.
Madam Mayor, can I ask, Mr. Vicky, I'm curious, the information that you got regarding the parking tickets, where did you get that? I'm just curious as to how you got it.
Yep, I asked my councilman, Fabian Giovanangelo, and he shared it with me.
And he got that where?
I believe here at the city office.
City office. Knowledge right off city office.
Was there a request to know
Yes,
form filled out?
I went to Alex Graziani and I asked all the information that he asked for. I got it off of Alex.
Did you fill out a request to know form is what I meant, a right to know form?
Alex told me I didn't need to fill that out since I'm executive officer.
I guess my concern is that's a lot of information and a lot of time and effort in that information, and I'm a little concerned that we have individual council members directing the city manager. I'd like to address a few of Mr. Gabicki's comments.
And before you do that, I would like to answer that for your purposes of your question to me in about time and time management. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree, because you have 498 times that someone was sent out to write a ticket, take that information down, come back into this city, put that into the computer, then void that and do that all over again. So I agree with you. Time management is important. Right,
but unfortunately, you're not telling quite the whole story. Well, I'll tell you some of the history. I mean, first of all, the practice of forgiving parking tickets goes long back, way past before Mr. Graziani even got here. Okay, that's one issue. Probably back to the time that you were mayor, Mr. Vicky, because I'm sure we've had this practice for many, many years. And the city has always looked at each specific incident and decided whether or not there was warrant if a mistake was made. I know me personally, I got a ticket in the mail one day from, it was like a $50 ticket from Bensalem, Pennsylvania, that said that I had an overparked parking meter in Bensalem, Pennsylvania. I don't even know where Bensalem, Pennsylvania is. I've never been there. It was obviously a typo, a transposition of parking numbers. I called them, I explained to them that I've never been to Bensalem, Pennsylvania, and they forgave my parking ticket. It's a normal practice. We have, in 2011, we had 8.5% of the parking tickets were forgiven. That was the highest percentage-wise that we had. And Mr. Graziano didn't start doing this until January of 2013. And part of the reason that I believe that was done is, number one, we have a strong city manager home rule charter that basically says that the city manager runs the day-to-day operations of the city. And I believe that someone in his position and his role has the ability to make a determination as to whether someone comes to him with a complaint and whether the complaint is justified. Parking ticket writing is a human type thing. You can transpose a number, you can transpose a spot. There's an awful lot, somebody may have forgotten their parking permit that day and we can verify that they have a parking permit. There are a lot of reasons why we want to be friendly to people that come to the city. Not to mention the fact that we had a parking fiasco for 2 years with the parking garage, and at the time, as soon as we got the parking garage situation resolved, we significantly raised parking rates and parking fines. So I think that it was a gesture of goodwill, and I don't personally have a problem with it. I trust Mr. Graziani to run the city effectively and efficiently for the citizens of the town. And I just think this is a little bit nitpicky, especially under the fact that this has been a long-standing practice. And in 2013, 7% of the parking tickets have been excused. That still doesn't meet the 8.5%. It's still lower than the 8.5% that we excused in 2011. And he wasn't making that determination now. Be that as it may, as a result of this issue, he has recommended this council, and actually recommended this council several months ago, that we adopt a policy on how to handle this. I really don't think it's in the best interest of people coming to Latrobe to visit us. If there's a mistake made, they should not have to go before the magistrate. It's ridiculous. It's time consuming for everybody. And if they come to the city, there should be a form and a format by which they can ask for forgiveness because a mistake was made. And mistakes made are made. We're all human, and everyone makes mistakes. So there's a policy that we all have been given a copy of, I think a couple months ago, that we can choose to adopt. But in the absence of a policy, which we had no policy, there's never been a policy that I could find, a written policy about how to handle people that come in here and have errors in parking tickets. But in absence of any kind of policy, it's the discretion of the manager and how he chooses to deal with it. And I completely support what Mr. Graziani did. I don't think there's a problem. I don't think there's a pattern here that shows that he did anything different than anybody else that was sitting in his chair.
Madam Mayor,
Stephen?
on this list of the excused tickets, I have a vehicle that was excused 24 times. No pattern? Same vehicle, same license number, excused 24 times.
Did you ask the question? Did you ask?
Well,
That's not a mistake.
you tell me that's not a pattern?
You don't mind helping.
Why?
Why was it excused? I don't know why it was excused.
I don't know the plate itself, I don't know the person, but we could go back and look at, the various records. Again, until we started to track that with the policy and with the form, they were pretty much coming in, onto my desk anonymously. The good thing about not being from Latrobe, among a lot of things, is that you just don't know anybody. So there's really no one, I don't even know who, has what plate or has what car, what thing. But when the slips would come to me, they would come with handwritten notes or whatever, and that's how they would be on my desk. And it would be some sort of claim to, I have a pass or I have whatever. I would check with staff, and if they had a pass, we would dismiss it. Again, tickets were not dismissed for I was too long at my parking session, or I forgot to pay, or those kinds of things. It was for handicap accessibility. It was for Pango misfires. It was for forgetting to hang their pass. It was for mistakes that we made. because we checked the wrong meter and so forth.
And that reminds me, I did have a Pango misfire, but I paid my ticket because I didn't want to be part of the witch hunt. I got on my Pango, I actually had on my iPhone where Pango started my activation and then immediately deactivated it, and I got a parking ticket, and I paid it because I didn't want to be part of this witch hunt. And that's exactly what I think this is. Because, again, where were you in 2012 when we had 7%? Where were you in 2011 when we had 8.5%?
Well,
Where were you in 2010 and 29?
Let me answer that then. Thank you. Yes, because you can use percentages to adjust those figures to make it look a lot lower. But let's look at it comparatively in the number of tickets that were written. Again, 5,000, let me finish, thank you very much.
You've been going on, you've made your point.
No, I'm not.
You've made your
You
point.
made 5,863 tickets in 2009. 217 were forgiven. In 2010, 5,949 tickets were written.
It's still the same percentage, Jim. It doesn't matter. It's
a
what
higher
percentage
part.
is. It's a statistical
Ask
number.
yourself, then there is something else there. Why is it-
Objectively,
why are
Mr.
the tickets-
Kubicki.
Why are the tickets decreasing in the number that are written, but the ticket numbers that are forgiven remain about the same?
Well, first of all, the reason that ticket numbers, we lost our parking meter maid, so we weren't writing as many tickets. And we're on pace in 2013 to write more tickets than we have written since 2010, okay? And maybe, we may even beat 2010. I mean, look,
I asked Mr. Graziani one time about when he says maybe something's broke here and there, and I asked him, I said, yeah, did you ever go out and check? It was Joe Bush. They asked him to go check that. He said no. This is a program, and if you're saying you have meters broken and stuff like that, why not call Joe up and have him go down and check it?
Every meter that is ever reported as broken is reported to the meter technician, and he does check it. Is that correct, Joe?
Yes, there is a report comes to us.
And I can understand why you said that to me then. Because I said, why can't you have Joe or his men go down and check it at that
We
time?
do that immediately, because I want that meter, again, think of it as like a restaurant. Manager might ask a table, how are the...
How's your french fries, guys? Okay,
And
I've heard it.
so the idea is that you want future sales. You want the person to comply. The fact is, we made this year about $280,000 to date in revenue from parking. Ticket fines make up less than 10% of that. And the dismissed tickets, if you were to figure out an average cost per ticket, make up about 1% of that. Where you make money in parking is in working meters, in compliance, is in future sales and return visits. You don't make money off of fines. It just isn't the way it works. It never has been. It isn't the way it is now. It isn't the way it will be.
I think the thing that concerns me the most is this is not going to balance our budget, okay? This is not something that is going to turn things around here, okay? We will fix and develop a policy so that this is addressed and addressed appropriately, okay? But what's happening is these little things these little bullets that are being fired are really taking away time from things that really need to be addressed, and that's how we're going to address the budget problems that we have. And I just think we need to focus on what's important, okay? We hear what you're saying, it's over and done with, there's no more changing of tickets until we get a policy in place, okay? So, you can win the battle and lose the war because the couple $1,000s that you make it seem like this is something new and unique and there's some cloud of conspiracy going on here when this is a practice that has been going on forever in this town, okay? And that's
When Mr. Graziani come on,
$6,000 some odd dollars?
when Mr. Graziani come on board and they were looking into,
In 5 years, yeah.
they were looking into the former chief and stuff like that. And in a news article, he made a remark that this will not happen under his administration.
You mind if I address that?
Go ahead.
Yeah. After that, former Chief Husky came and met with Barbara Griffin and I. And he was pretty upset about the tenor of my remarks. And to his credit, was kind enough to help me understand how it had worked as he is chief. And again, it's been going on, I don't know how long it happened before him. And he listed for the mayor and I, Barbara, do you recall that meeting where we met? He listed for us a number of reasons. For example, somebody was tagged for being a handicap space but did not have their placard properly displayed. Somebody, again, was a monthly pass holder and didn't have their pass properly displayed and so forth. And, I'm big enough to know when we've got a problem and I've made mistakes. And for me, we had a public relations disaster on our hands. We had a closed garage for 2 years, a council who wasn't able to decide what to do. And as soon as we got the garage open, we raised rates by a significant amount, including the parking fines, which we spent 3 meetings or 4 meetings debating and rehashing that one. Needless to say, the public relations issue we had was quite large. In order to address it, I identified the problem. I came up with a program to address the problem, developed a protocol for addressing the problem, but it's an issue of meaning. It's an issue of taking a community through the trauma of the new system and the new ways to a current system. And I thank Chief Husker because he enlightened me on some of the ways that someone might use common sense. Often government is accused of not being common sense oriented or acting like a business. And I know that most businesses treat the customer with utmost respect. In fact, some businesses might go as far as say the customer is always right. And at times, when customers would say to us that we made a mistake on parking, it was, in our best interest to try to do right by that customer for a legitimate complaint. They were never dismissed because I didn't have coin, or something like that. So Chief Huska set me straight, and I was wrong. And so I formalized the policy, but until directed by otherwise from this council in a formal vote policy, I see no reason to do anything differently, but whether we made a mistake or not, to let it go to the magistrate and allow the customer to have the inconvenience of taking it that way.
Okay, we have somebody else.
Madam Mayor, before we go on, I'd just like to say what troubles me with Mr. Gabicki's remarks is that he characterizes Mr. Graziani's actions as misdeeds and ticket fixing. This implies something untoward and calls into question his character.
Okay.
Mr. Molinari, and just to tell you.
It's all personal, Jim. It's all personal with you and Fabian. And I'm frankly, had it up to here with the personal attacks.
Okay, it's time for the next
You're a lover
person.
of thought, Kenny.
I've never been personal.
Oh, my God. You're hollering Mr. Bolton, screaming out all the time.
That was not personal. That wasn't personal. That was over.
Next
Doesn't
person.
matter, Fabian. Jim's minion.
Okay, next person.
What are you with,
I can't hear her. Go ahead.
I would like to bring everybody's attention to a comment that Alex has just made when we were talking about parking tickets. He just said...
Excuse me, they were still talking. I didn't get to hear your name.
Jennifer Forrest, 517 Weldon Street. I know. I'd like to bring your attention to a comment that Alex just made when we were talking about parking tickets. He said, I don't know plate numbers. I'm not from Latrobe. And I would like to know why you are not from Latrobe, because the city manager is supposed to reside in the city.
Right.
There's nothing in the code that requires the city manager to reside in the city, just so you're aware.
I thought it was 5 months within the city. It's not in there.
It was promised, Mr. Jim asked.
Frankly, I don't blame him with the way he's being treated lately. I don't know that I'd want to live here too.
My house is for sale.
Well, that's raised there.
Okay,
Wow.
go ahead. Alex, he just made an announcement his house was for sale. Okay,
For how long?
2.5 years.
okay.
Good evening. I'm Craig Bryson and I live at 711 Weldon Street. On Friday night, November the 1st at approximately midnight, my wife and I were awakened by loud noise and the smell of smoke. We noticed a bonfire burning in the backyard of 713 Weldon Street under a large hemlock tree. We called 911 and reported it. The police arrived and helped put out the fire. We had to call 911 again at approximately 1 a.m. because of loud noises continuing to come from a gathering of people in the backyard of 711 Weldon Street. I'd like to know 2 things. Was there a police report filed, and was the fire chief notified?
John, was you notified of that?
John?
No, that's the first I've heard of this. In fact, to address you people, there is an open burning ordinance within the city. There's no open burning permitted, there's an ordinance. In fact, I expected 2 people to show up this evening from 149 Laurel Lane, who I responded to over the weekend, and I was threatened. The guy was from Jeanette, and I told him, I said, well, it doesn't matter what you do in Jeanette, this is the city of Latrobe, there's an ordinance, there's an open burning ordinance. I'm going to read the ordinance. I was expecting those other people to be here, but since you people have brought this to my attention, I had no knowledge of this call. But there is an ordinance on open burning. It's chapter 262, and it starts 262:1, and it has outdoor burning within Latrobe limits prohibited, and violations and penalties. The ordinance states, outdoor burning within Latrobe limits prohibited. No person or persons shall burn or cause to be burned any municipal waste, trash, lumber, leaves, straw, or any other combustible materials of any kind in or upon any streets, alleys, or upon any public or private property within the limits of Latrobe. Any person who violates any provision of this chapter shall be guilty of a summary offense for each day of the violation, and upon conviction shall be required to pay a penalty for the use of Latrobe in a sum not to exceed $600, together with costs of prosecution, and in default of such payment shall undergo imprisonment for not more than 30 days. I'm going to tell you something. I respond to a lot of these, take time away from my family. I get criticized, I get ridiculed, I get threatened. I'm here for you people. I will respond to these calls. I handed out a lot of cards tonight because I got calls at home. Call me. Don't call the police, call me.
Hey, John, can I ask you a question? Do you, and I'm just asking a question because I don't know, but do you have the authority to cite them? Or
I
do
do
you
not.
need to?
I have to call the police,
Okay.
and they have to issue a non-traffic citation
Okay.
under my authority. I
Okay.
do not have the authority to write. We cited a gentleman back in the summer. He lit all the shrubs on his fire around his house.
Okay.
I get called to a brush fire at 1700 block of Lincoln Avenue. I'm thinking, where in the hell is there brush on Lincoln Avenue?
So, John, the police have to write the citation?
Under my direction. I asked
Okay,
them.
but do you have to be there? I mean, if the police are called, can they write the citation?
It's a fire department related incident, Rosie. It is not, I should be notified. If there is a
Okay.
fire, I need to be
But
notified.
what if you're out on vacation? What if you're not available?
I have an assistant chief that fills in for me, just like the chief. In his absence,
Jim.
he has somebody.
Do you know? I mean, does the,
Nanzia, you can charge someone for open burning, correct?
I have to differ.
Right.
Excuse me, I have to differ with Mr. Brazili. His presence there is not needed. If they are violating an ordinance, I don't care what it is.
If it is
The
a fire,
police
Jim,
can cite them.
I need to know about it.
That's
have
a
to do a
different,
report.
John, that's a different story. But you're
What
saying
is
they
it?
can only issue a citation if you happen to be present there. No. They can issue that citation. Should you be notified as
Let me
police
ask
chief?
you this, then why are they not
Why are they not what?
issuing a citation?
That I can't answer, John.
I mean, I think we're talking.
But let's be fair, is a citation issued every time you're on the scene?
No.
No. So, it's not issued then, generally it's a warning
Usually,
given,
I
is
give
that
a
correct?
first time warning. But
Right,
there's-
okay, first
there's
time
repeat
warning.
offenders. I want to tell you something.
So you had that,
I am not
they
gonna give you
responded
the
2 times to
officers.
the same place. Don't you say
The second time they're going to get a
it was
fire.
fire and noise, was it not, Mr. Bryson?
Yes.
Both times? Both times. The
Fire
gentleman
the
just said
first-
right there. Why didn't our police?
The fire wasn't.
The fire wasn't
Fire,
there the
fire
second.
first time, noise the second time. So, I mean, is that?
Do we know if there was a site? We don't know. Do we know if there was a, because we'll have to look into it because
I
the
didn't even
chief's
know
not here.
I didn't even know about this incident, so how could I tell you otherwise? I'm just telling you, I come.
Oh, they were given a warning, as everyone usually is on a first violation of an open
I don't know, I
fire pit.
wasn't there.
I wasn't asking you, I was asking them. And you don't have to, from what Jim Kelly's telling us, you don't have to be there for them to issue a warning or
If there's
citation.
a fire, I need to be notified.
I'm not talking about a fire, John, I'm talking about burning a fire in a fire pit. That's what I thought you were
Fire
talking.
burning, it's in my part of the ordinance. What part of that don't you understand?
It's not a fire pit, Rosie, it was a big bonfire.
It was a bonfire, it wasn't
It wasn't in a pit.
I know, but it wasn't an engulfment of a building or something like a garage on fire, but it wasn't. It was a bonfire.
Air
burning?
close
Fire
to
chief still needs to be
Yes.
notified for any
Yes.
fire in the city.
Yes, I understand.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
Okay,
Yes, I do.
You know, in God we trust, you I don't.
okay, anybody, next person?
Back at you,
Antonetti,
John.
717 Weldon Street. I actually was not going to get up and speak today because I don't want to tax. But at 11:45 that same evening, I was letting my dog out, and I noticed that they had a major fire going on in the backyard. I know that we are not allowed to do that in the city of Latrobe. I would have loved to have a little chimney myself, but I know it's against the ordinance. I opened my gate, I stayed on my sidewalk. Two of them came over and said, well, I said, do you realize this is against an ordinance? And then I realized, because they looked at me, they didn't know what that meant. So I said, it's against the law. You're not allowed to burn like that. The houses are too close. Something could catch on fire. My house, the neighbor's house, your house. And they said, do you want to come over? I declined. So I went in the house and I waited to think, and I thought, well, they'll probably put it out. Instead, what they did was they added more logs to the fire. So I did not want to call, and it's my mistake for not calling the fire department, because I didn't want the fire trucks and, you know, and all the gasoline and the time that you guys put into your fire trucks and all that. So I called my friend, who is a fire department president up in Chestnut Ridge, and asked for his advice. He said, call the police, which I did. They came, checked the side, and this was probably about midnight, maybe about the same time Bryson's called. They did not put out that fire. I went to bed thinking that the police had handled it. And that is what happened. And then I find out that Bryson's called twice too. They ignored the warning and they continued to burn.
Okay, thanks. All right. Anybody have anything on another issue?
Jim Bolton, 225 Irving Avenue. I've been fortunate to be around enough that I remember downtown on Saturday night, you couldn't hardly walk for the crowd. And I look at it today and quite a change. I know things have changed in the world. Over the years, my wife and I have made some investments in the city. Today I feel some of those investments are in jeopardy on some of the things that are happening. I made a copy of that report that you spent $80,000 for, brought these experts in. Things that you should have seen yourself a long time ago. When a town of 8,000 people, their expenditures increase a little over $1 million in 6 years, there's a problem. If this was 80,000, I could possibly understand it. I've seen budgets. I know I've been shot down because I was wrong, but I have it in black and white. You can make up a budget, but when you overspend the budget, it's called a deficit budget. You had it every year also. It's as if you get tax money and it goes through your fingers like water. To be able to maybe have you understand, may not be a poor analogy, but it's like you trying to maintain your life in the country club on your monthly welfare check, hoping that something or somebody will bail you out. You are extremely fortunate that you had something. It's called a transfer station. Made you quite a bit of money, good profit. Bailed you out. The money went into the general fund. A transfer station is a business. It's a money-making business. When you have a company and you make money, you take some of that profit and reinvest it. And a couple years ago, one of the reasons to try to give that transfer station away was the fact that the roll-off trucks were in bad shape. There should be 2 new roll-off trucks up there right now. You just raised your rates. How are you gonna haul that trash from the transfer station to the landfill? How are you gonna set your roll-off boxes in town here? Instead, you ran out and bought 3 more police cars, a pickup truck, and a snowplow blade. All money makers. If police car broke down, quite frankly, I don't really care. If that transfer truck can't make it to the landfill, I care. In the last 4 years, I know of 20 commercial properties that have changed hands. Only one that I know of is still paying taxes. The others are multi-million-dollar non-profit corporations in the county. Unless you've made some kind of a secret deal with a community college that they're going to kick in $10,000, $20,000 a year to make up for the taxes that were lost from that property, you're not going to get zip from that school. I hate to say it, zero. I don't know if you're familiar with the community college or if you've ever attended it, but the people going there normally are working. They attend their class, they go back out and get in their car, and they go home to their family or to their parents or what have you. They aren't going to stop here in town. You've talked about a budget. You have to cut the budget. There is no way you can raise taxes. I'll tell you that right now. You raise any more taxes in this town, it could be the final nail in the city coffin. As taxes go up, property values go down. I guarantee it. As I said, you operate a business, you're losing money, you don't raise your prices. That's automatically the road to bankruptcy. But you have to start cutting. You have to furlough. I've said for years, you gotta start making cuts. I've never seen one question about making a cut. I have seen money spent, people hired. I know everybody thinks they're entitled to a raise, but in this atmosphere, raises should have been frozen. If I look at the budget, the benefits, there were $800,000 for benefits. $329,000, I think, goes into the police retirement fund. Grant you everybody should have benefits. You reach the point, if you reach another contract talk, the only thing you can give to your employees is insurance for their pets. You've covered just about everything else. If some of these people take full advantage of the days that they can take off, sick days, holidays, vacation days, they might work 10 months of the year. When you look and talk about what you don't really talk about, I call it the sacred cow. You don't mention a word about it. And that's your police department. Not to nitpick, grant you, they deserve it. If there's a police officer in this community with his base salary, his overtime, his other benefits, retirement fund and so forth, that's making less than $70,000 a year, maybe $80,000. And in one of those reports I read where the median income in the city is $35,000. You want these people to pay the salary of someone that's making 2-3 times their amount. Unfortunately, you've reached the point you're going to have to sacrifice a sacred cow. You can't afford to feed it anymore. Myself personally, I would have to let 5 officers go. As I told you years ago, cut $50,000 from your electric bill. You're paying $150,000 a year to light up streets, and ain't nobody there. I go out and walk my dog at 11 o'clock at night on Liggett Street. I don't even get a car to go by me. Why do I need a street light on every pole? I don't know. It's ridiculous. Your benefits, you're going to have to look at it. Some people are going to complain. You may end up with 2 secretaries working part-time, no benefits in your front office. You can't afford it. You're getting so top-heavy, it's unbelievable. You don't have the people to pay. As I said, you raise those taxes, you're going to kill this town. Okay. These new people that are coming into office, I think I can tell you, good luck and God bless you. I don't know if you really know what you're going into. But if you look at the budgets and what's been going on, I don't care what you say. You took $103,000 out of your general fund. You're still short this year. I figured $100,000. Sounds like it's going to be closer to $200,000. That should bring your general fund down to about $300,000. You can hit it one more time to balance the 2014 budget, then you're done. You're going to hit that $500,000 deficit that these people told you were going to hit in 2016. You're going to hit it in 2050. Where are you going to get the money? You're going to make a fabulous reading in the Greensburg Trib, just like Jeanette is today. As I said, these new council people, God bless you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anybody else?
James Miller, 214, 127 4th Avenue, Latrobe. Regarding the benefits in that there, a few council meetings ago, you voted, all but one person voted, to increase and give some employees dental health care. That was not required, was not negotiated. Only one council member said that they thought it should have been negotiated. Because somebody needed some probably expensive dental work, it was brought up at the meeting and you all passed it. I would imagine there's a lot of people in Latrobe that don't have dental care and have to pay it out of their own pockets. I don't like to see anybody get laid off either, but I think things have to be drawn back a little bit. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Okay, is that it? Okay, thank you. Okay, committee reports?
I got a question. Alex, would you please see who the officer was in charge that night and see why? Because I'm hearing from these people here that fire wasn't put out.
Okay.
And see why he chose not to call the fire department.
Okay, do we have any committee? Oh, did Stephen?
For the record on Fabian's comment there. It's powers and duties of the chief, which JB read part of his code and stuff. This other part also says, fire department, it shall be his duty to be present at all fires and take such measures as in his opinion may be necessary for the extinguishment of fires, protection of property, preservation of order and compliance with the ordinances of the city of Latrobe and the rules and regulations of the fire department, which also falls under, to help answer your question that you brought up earlier, Rosie.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. Okay, we'll move on. And we have any committee reports? Board authority?
Madam Chairman, I'll wait until the 537 resolution is brought up.
Okay. Department, Mr. Brazil, Chief Brazili, anything else?
Yeah, I just do want to touch base. Like I said, I was prepared to come here to greet people from 149 Laurel Lane who challenged me on the same ordinances. I had no idea that these residents from Weldon Street area had these issues until I started getting the phone calls. I apologize, I was never called or I would have responded. I gave you all my cards. Call me. Don't call 911. One thing that does trouble me, I responded to a couple open burning complaints down First Ward on Oak Street. I get there, I was told, an officer.
Wait, John, what you just said was very irresponsible. You said call you, don't call 911? That's highly irresponsible.
I don't take anything you say worth of darn, Kenny, anymore.
Well, it doesn't matter whether you take...
You challenge everybody in this room. Let me finish my report.
That was irresponsible.
You're irresponsible.
Let him finish.
You were irresponsible.
John, go ahead. Go ahead, finish. You want to finish?
Yes, I do. I responded to a call, down two of them actually, on Oak Street. I get there and I said, you know, people, there's an ordinance. There's no open burning. You're not allowed to use the fire pits, chimeneas, or anything that's open. We were told by an officer, as long as we're using them to cook, it's okay. I'm not going to give you that officer's name. They gave it to me. I'm going to take that to Chief Boomer, because that's a personnel issue. It makes my job hard when I got an officer telling these people that they're allowed to do it. You're breaking the ordinance. I'm irresponsible? I don't think so. I took the oath of Commonwealth, Mr. Baldary, and so did you. And so did you.
Your statement was irresponsible,
you know what?
and
the
it
people
was.
of this community demand and earn the respect that you should give them. That you should give them, instead of always trying to shove it to them. You're wrong, and that's my opinion.
Okay.
You're so criticizing of everybody. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Joe Bush?
Yes.
There still seems to be some confusion surrounding what's going to happen here in the next few months as far as garbage, residential garbage pickup. Everyone is going to be receiving a 65-gallon toter. It's the size of this one that's over here to the right side of the room. The color of it will be black bottom, orange top. We are going to begin in January to recycle single stream, meaning that there's going to be an additional items than what we've been used to here. We're going to be able to put newspaper, magazines, telephone books, chipboard, which I describe as like a cereal box or an oatmeal box, toothpaste box. By November 22nd, you have the option. If you would choose, you can get a dumpster like this one that's on the left side of the room. It's 95 gallon, that toter. There'll be an additional charge per quarter. You will not have to use stickers. Any of your garbage that you bring out of your house can be placed in that toter and will be taken away. If that toter is full and you place bags around it or on top of it, they must be stickered. But this is an option. This is where a lot of people are getting confused. If you want this dumpster by November 22nd, you must mail in your request. If not, business continues as it always have for you. You purchase your stickers, you put them out at curbside. But all recycling will go in this toter. We're trying to get the word out as much as we can. Radio, newspaper, meetings such as this. If anybody has any better ideas or any question, please contact us. don't know how to make it any more clear.
I have a question.
Yes.
I was approached by a resident that lives on a 25-foot lot. There's probably about 400 of them. And the question really was this, and it seems simplistic, but I'll reiterate it. They asked whether or not if the neighbor, let's say at 410, puts out a 65-gallon tote, is the neighbor at 412, provided they've paid all their bills, allowed to put the recyclables in the 410 tote? You understand what I'm saying? Can two people use one of those totes?
I would not see that there would be a problem as long as Party A knew that Party B was putting it in there.
I'll ask Party A to tell Party B, Joe.
Our goal is to increase recycling, and by doing that in each household, you're actually going to be saving.
You know, the other thing is, I am glad that you're using the black bottom and the orange top instead of the orange bottom and the black top. I think that we would have looked like pumpkin patch.
I think we need to make it clear though, the same would not be true for refuse.
The same would not be true for refuse.
We're just talking recycling, correct?
Right.
They have to use their own container, either the bag or the toter, for their own
For
refuse.
example, if your neighbor said, I'm not gonna buy a toter or a sticker, I'm just gonna talk to the
No.
neighbor and put my garbage in his bag, and sooner or later, we would figure out
That was going on, and that's not allowed.
No, but what they said was allowed is exactly as Joe said, and I think,
Every resident still gets charged for a garbage bill.
Right.
of course.
right.
It's just that, yeah, but the hauler will only have to pick up one 65-gallon tote instead of two and dump.
Again, just for recyclables, you're saying that's okay to do that sharing?
Yes, as long as both parties agree.
What about old people? How's old people gonna get that out? It'll take me probably 3 months to fill one of those. I mean, old people.
You don't have to get it.
You don't have to.
You're talking about the recyclable one.
You don't have to put that out every week, right?
You do not have to put it out every
Finally get it filled enough. Old people, how's somebody old gonna drag one of those? That don't make sense.
You can put it out when it's full or at your
Yeah,
church.
but somebody old, how is somebody old gonna take a big?
How did they
thing
get
like
the
that?
crate?
Huh?
How did they get the crate out?
This is
That
on
would be
wheels.
easier to
You
move
don't
than a
think a
crate.
crate's a lot smaller than that?
It's on
The
wheels.
little-
I know how big they
the little
have
green
one.
thing, you don't think it's smaller than that?
I think that's easy, that would be easier.
It's on wheels.
Mr. Kelly, I wish you wouldn't argue with the lady. She has a very valid point. In other words, older people that are handicapped or have difficulty even walking and have to use a
Somebody
cane.
80 years old, how are they gonna get that out?
I hope that the manager and the public works superintendent will look into that and see what kind of accommodations they can make.
Well, another question I have, you know, in some other places I've talked to other people, they come up with, they had a smaller one for older people instead of such a big one, that people can take it out. You know, that's just, I think it's ridiculous.
Wasn't that a 35-gallon one she's talking about? Mr. Graziani?
When we were looking at preparing bid specs, we had the option to have variable card sizes, but in order to keep overall rates down, chose to do the medium middle size because it would be cheaper buying one lot. However, Mr. Jim has made a request that I explore opportunities, and I'll see once again whether that, any accommodations. Just to be clear, come mid-December, every house in Latrobe will have a 65-gallon recycle card to be delivered. It will be black with orange top. However, recycling is not mandatory. They may choose never to use it. They may use it or they may not. They may use it once a week, they may use it more. And as we learned tonight, they may also share it with their neighbors. We bought the cards for a number of practical reasons. One, it's better to accommodate the newspaper and plastic items that would blow out of an open top bin. Two, they're easier to pull with the weight that will be created by newspaper and other more of the recycling materials we have. And three, they're sturdy enough to last the life of the contract and are designed for most people with normal abilities to do it. I would grant you, a person with a walker would not be able to move it. I suspect they would not be able to move the cart as well, the bin that we currently have.
Okay, Steve, you want to say something?
Let me make a point clear there. It does not have to be full. I mean, you can put it out partially full. It does not have to be full to make it easier on the elderly. I mean,
Right.
It'll be a lot easier than you think.
It will. Okay, Ann?
I have no report, Madam.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor, members of council, excuse me, I'm going to ask your pleasure, if you would, to amend the agenda to add an item 6 under the Public Works Department. And that would be a resolution to authorize the city manager to sign an indemnification agreement with Lehigh Specialty Steel. There will be delivered for storage there in the month of December approximately 3,000 of these recyclable containers. And they will then be thereafter distributed by Republic to the individual citizens. Lehigh has agreed to allow us to store those containers there for roughly, I'm guessing, about 2 weeks. In turn, they asked that we would indemnify them from any liability for that storage. So I would ask that a motion be made to amend the agenda so we can add that as item 6 under Public Works.
Can I have a motion to amend the agenda?
Motion, Madam.
Okay, Mr. Forrest, second, please.
I'll second.
Mr. Scapora, any questions? Okay, all in favor of amending the agenda?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried.
Madam Mayor, may I go ahead? Madam Mayor, members of council, under the action items, the first department is Administration and Finance. And the first item is an ordinance. I'm not going to go through it in its entirety. I'll simply read the caption. The ordinance has been advertised and it has been distributed both to the Adams Library and to the city secretary for anyone who wished to review a copy. The title is Amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Latrobe regarding various fees and establishing one or more fee schedules in the administrative code. To make a long story short, we have extracted a number of our fees that were set forth in different parts of the ordinance. We now put them on the one schedule, which will be at the very end of the administrative code within our code of ordinances. As I indicated, the ordinance has been duly advertised. The motion would be to enact the ordinance as outlined by the solicitor.
May I have a motion?
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Mr.
I'll second the motion.
Second, Mr. Jim. Any questions or discussion? Questions?
Madam Mayor, I'd just like to comment that even with the new schedule, it's still considerably below most other communities. And I think as I see it, yeah.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, Barb?
This is ordinance 2013-7. Mrs. Wolford?
Yes.
Mr. Giovanangelo?
Yes.
Mr. Forage?
Yes.
Mr. Scapora?
Yes.
Mr. Baldneri?
Yes.
Mr. Jim?
Yes.
Mayor Griffin?
Yes.
Vote is 7 yes.
Motion carried, thank you.
Madam Mayor, members of council, the next item is a resolution. It's entitled Authorizing Participation in the Update of the Westmoreland County Hazard Mitigation Plan. We previously indicated our intention to participate in the countywide hazard mitigation plan. It is now time to update that plan, and we are being requested by the county to again indicate our intention to become part of the working group that will update the plan. The proper motion would be to adopt the resolution as outlined by the solicitor.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Scapora, second, please.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Baldneri, any questions or discussion? Questions? Discussion? Okay.
This is resolution 2013-61. Mr. Giovanangelo?
Yes.
Mr. Forage?
Yes.
Mr. Jim?
Yes.
Mrs. Wolford?
Yes.
Mr. Baldneri?
Yes.
Mr. Scapora?
Yes.
Mayor Griffin?
Yes.
Vote is 7 yes.
Motion carried, thank you.
Madam Mayor, members of council, the next department is the Public Works Department, and the first item on the agenda is an ordinance to vacate a portion of Avenue B. This portion of Avenue B extends from an alleyway parallel to Ligonier Street and between property of Latrobe Carpenter Steel and what was formerly the Latrobe Moose, which they have purchased, so they actually own the property on both sides of that portion of Avenue B. The ordinance was duly advertised. It's entitled, "An Ordinance to Authorize and Require the Vacating and Closing of a Portion of Avenue B situate in the 5th Ward of the City of Latrobe, bounded on the southeast and north by property of Latrobe Specialty Metals Company, and on the west by the easterly right-of-way line of a 15-foot alley." Attached to the ordinance is a meets and bounds description of that section of Avenue B, as well as a copy of the tax map identifying it. The motion would be to enact the ordinance as outlined by the solicitor.
May I have a motion?
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Baldner, second, please.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Jim, any questions or discussion? Questions, discussions? Okay, Bob.
Question is, you did say they own both portions, both lots on either side of?
Yes, and at the terminus. So they own either side, the terminus, the other side, the only side they don't own was where it butts on the alley.
Okay, any other questions? Barb?
This is ordinance 2013-8. Mr. Baldner.
Yes.
Mr. Jim.
Yes.
Mr. Skipora.
Yes.
Mrs. Wolford.
Abstain.
Mr. Forge.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanangelo.
No.
Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Vote is 5 yes, 1 no, 1 abstain.
The motion carried. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, members of council, the next item also under the Public Works Department is a resolution, and it is entitled Authorizing the City Engineer to Apply for the Community Development Block Grant Allocation for repaving of certain streets in the City of Latrobe. Essentially, the city engineer is going to apply for a 2014 Community Development Block Grant Allocation. The estimated amount would be $87,780, and as indicated, it would be for paving within the city. The motion would be to adopt the resolution as outlined by the solicitor.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, second.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Baldner, any questions or discussion? Questions, discussion?
I have a question.
Oh, question.
Will you
Mr.
still
Forge?
run with Gibson Thomas as our city engineer?
The new budget contemplates advertising for the engineer, the auditor, and solicitor. The people who are filling those positions now may apply. So if Gibson Thomas is deemed at that time to be a worthy applicant, they will be our engineer for the 2014 year.
All right, my question is then, should we wait till we see who our city engineer is before we let them?
Unfortunately, we have a deadline that we need to meet with CDBG. We are not an entitlement community, so we need to go into the county's program, and we don't want to miss that deadline.
All right, that's fine. That's what I want to know, if we had a deadline or whatnot.
Can you change the ordinance to just say the city engineer, whoever that is, rather than say Gibson Thomas?
No, we have a deadline.
The resolution doesn't designate an individual or a person, I don't think.
We have a
He
deadline
has,
to file for.
they are the engineer, they're the city's engineer.
Gibson Thomas, it has to be.
I take that back, it does. If they start the procedure and someone else has to finish it, then so be it.
Okay.
That's a cluster, and you know as well as I do.
On the other hand, we can't wait.
I understand. I just had that question. That's what I want to know, if there was plans or if it was still up for bids for new city engineers or whatnot. And I want to know if we had a date. I didn't know what our deadline was to file for this. That's what I was asking.
Yeah, so council is clear. Council can at any time it wants, anytime, open up any position such as the engineer, my position, the city auditor. We serve at council's pleasure. We don't have to wait until the organizational meeting, we can if changes are to be made, but just so everyone's clear on that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kelly.
Okay, Barb?
This is resolution 2013-62. Mr. Skopora?
Yes.
Mr. Forge?
Yes.
Mrs. Wolford?
Yes.
Mr. Jim?
Yes.
Mr. Baldner?
Yes.
Mr. Giovanangelo?
Yes.
Mayor Griffin?
Yes.
Vote is 7 yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion carried.
Madam Mayor and members of council, the next item is an ordinance which was also duly advertised, and it is entitled Amending the Municipal Waste Disposal Rates, and there is an Exhibit A which is attached to the ordinance, and it sets forth the various rates that would be paid by the citizens of our community for sanitary sewage service. The ordinance has been duly advertised. The motion would be to enact the ordinance as outlined by the citizens.
It's for the residential.
This is for the residential.
Commercial solid waste and residential recycling services.
Mr. Graziano just did outline it.
Okay, may I have a motion?
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Skopora, second.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Baldner, any questions or discussion? Questions, discussion, questions? Mr. Barb?
This is ordinance 2013-9. Mr. Jim?
Yes.
Mr. Giovanangelo?
No.
Mr. Forge?
Yes.
Mr. Skopora?
Yes.
Mr. Baldner?
Yes.
Mrs. Wolford?
Yes.
Mayor Griffin?
Yes.
Vote is 6 yes, 1 no.
Motion carried, thank you.
Madam Mayor, members of council, the next item on the agenda, also under Public Works, is a resolution, and it's entitled Approving a Consent Order and Agreement of the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection regarding Act 537 update. Council, I know, is well aware of the ongoing dispute between Unity Township Municipal Authority and the Latrobe Municipal Authority with regard to the Act 537 update. I'll let Mr. Jim go ahead and comment. He's attended the meetings as have.
Madam Mayor, members of council, essentially this agreement has been produced by Bruce Hirschlag, and he is the General Counsel for the Department of Environmental Protection. The agreement essentially, and this was suggested by him, consists of 3 meetings to be held in front of him between the engineers of the competing plans, namely Unity Township Plan and the Latrobe Municipal Authority Plan. The first meeting, the managers may attend, and the second and third or fourth or longer or other meetings, just the engineers. And these will be conducted, I think, over the next 3 or 4 months. And Unity Township had further agreed at one point that they would withdraw their appeal to the DEP ruling which dismissed their plan. So hopefully this will be the least expensive method for resolving the issues which currently exist. And our resolution, that is the resolution for the Latrobe Municipal Authority, has already been prepared, and we're ready to present that at the authority meeting. I think it's next Tuesday. So, and it seems like all are in accord. And if there are any further questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Just to add to what Mr. Jim said, not only will our engineers and Unity Township's engineers be there, but also the engineers from the department itself. So they'll be, we'll have engineers from the department looking at both plans.
My understanding, Mr. Jim, is, and you recommend we go with this resolution?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We have a motion? We have a motion.
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Ms. Wolford, second, please.
I'll second, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Forrest, any questions or discussion?
Is this open to the public?
No. Oh.
What?
Is the meeting open to the public?
Next Tuesday? They're always open to the public, yes. I believe so.
Yes, the meetings of Latrobe Municipal Authority are open to the public.
I mean, the three.
No, the meetings between the Department of Environmental Protection will not be open to the public. They will be strictly work sessions. Let's leave it at that.
Okay, any questions? Okay, Barb?
This is resolution 2013-63. Mr. Forge,
Yes.
Mr. Scapora,
Yes.
Mrs. Wolford,
Yes.
Mr. Baldnery.
Yes.
Mr. Jim.
Mr. Solicitor, need I abstain or not?
I would, just for the record. Even though I don't see any real conflict, but I would go ahead and
All right, I abstain.
Mr. Giovanangelo,
Yes.
Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Vote is 6 yes, 1 abstain.
Okay, motion carried, thank you.
Madam Mayor, members of council, the next item is a very short resolution. It's entitled Approving a Contract for Winter Snow Removal, and that would be with Barclay Development Company. Basically, it's a contract to remove snow both from sidewalks and our parking facilities. The motion would be to adopt the resolutions outlined by the solicitor.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, Mr. Scapora, may I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Baldnery, any questions or discussion?
I have a question.
Questions?
Is this an expense that we budget every year?
Correct, and it also depends upon whether, in fact, in 2009, I believe, or 2010, we spent $40,000 on this budget line items. Last year, we, I think, budgeted 15 or so and then spent a little bit over that. Again, we had a lot of nuisance events last year that required salting. So it's a flexible, the bid price that we're accepting is based on basically an hourly use of equipment, not a capped amount. So if we have a mild winter, we'll spend less, and if we have a heavy winter, we'll spend more.
Is this the company we used last year?
Correct.
Okay, any other questions or discussion?
Charges by snowfall, in other words, what you're saying?
By equipment as well. Some events require certain pieces of equipment than others, so it's partly a cost. What we do is we promote or ask for people to give us prices based on, X, Y, Z pieces of equipment for snow events, and then we get costs from whoever has the lowest, which is Barclay in this case. We want to have a contract with them.
Okay, any other questions or discussion? Okay, Barb?
Who oversees and makes that decision on whether they're bringing in the right piece of equipment or what?
That would be the Director of Public Works, directly supervises them.
That's fine, I got no problem with that.
Okay.
Does the contract, does it exceed the bid prices, bid price allowance? You spoke of $40,000. Do we have to bid that?
Well, what we do, again, is when you look at the line item each year, it varies based on the snow events. Some years it's been as low as $10,000 or $12,000. And so what we're actually asking them the price isn't that bid total. We're asking them to give us a price on, on pieces of equipment and an hourly rate for using that. The weather will determine how long that will be. So it's such a variable. It's not something that, meets or exceeds the, the threshold for, bid specifications that you might have. For example, if you bought $20,000 worth of stem.
I'm not sure, but if
you'd like us in the future to actually bid it out.
Well, I believe
this is the first time we've even brought it to council to have your review and blessing.
Well, and it's the first time I've heard the $40,000 figure, although I'm just, the solicitor there is remaining quiet.
Well, I believe that this number is based upon an average of past experiences. Now, we all know we've had some light winters, and that's helped us stay in the $10,000 range. We also know we had a pretty serious snowfall several years ago, and I would suspect if I looked at it, that's where the $40,000 figure came. So, it's not something you can pinpoint with any accuracy any more than we can pinpoint how much salt we're going to need. We guesstimate based upon prior experience, and that's what that number basically is.
look at it this way, Richard, that Joe knows what he's doing, he's not gonna let him rip us off, right, Joe?
Correct.
My point was that you have to bid out anything which may exceed a certain amount, and I'm not sure that it's $25,000 for authorities now, and I'm not sure what the figure is for boroughs or cities. And you can't string it out, so to speak. I mean, you know, if it's going to go over that certain amount, then it has to be bid. You can't say, well, I didn't think I was going to do this much or this, so on and so forth.
Joe wants to
Mayor. Mr. Jim, I think I can help clarify that 40,000 a little bit. That was the winter that we had to haul snow out from the downtown area. We had triaxles in here and huge loaders. And that's why that money, you know, that's why there was such a significant difference. This year, I got the word we're not going to have any snowfall like that. But that's why there was such a difference, because that was the hauling out of snow from Chestnut Street down to the bridge, from Alex down here to Jefferson.
Did the word also say we don't have to bid it?
Correct.
I'm gonna hold you to that, Joe DiNardo.
Joe said it would, remember?
That's it, Joe said.
All right, any other questions or discussion? Okay, Barb.
This is resolution 2013-64. Mrs. Wolford? Yes. Mr. Baldner?
Yes.
Mr. Forich?
Yes.
Mr. Scapora?
Yes.
Mr. Jim and Angela?
Yes.
Mr. Jim?
Yes.
Mayor Griffin?
Yes.
Vote is 7 yes.
Motion carried, thank you.
Madam Mayor and members of council, the next item is the item for which we amended the agenda. It will be a resolution entitled authorizing the city manager to sign an indemnification agreement for the storage of recyclable containers on property of Lehigh Specialty Steel. Now therefore be it resolved, Section 1, that the Council of the City of Latrobe does hereby approve the signing by the city manager of the indemnification agreement for the storage of 3,065 gallon recyclable containers on property of Latrobe Specialty Steel, or Lehigh Specialty Melting Inc. Section 2, that the mayor, city manager, city secretary, and any other proper city officer are authorized and directed to take any and all action and sign any and all documents necessary to carry into effect this resolution resolved in council this date. The motion would be to adopt the resolution as outlined by the solicitor.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Baldner, second, please.
I'll second.
Mr. Scapora? Any questions or discussion?
I do have a question.
Okay.
Is this similar, if not very closely worded as our indemnification agreement with Lehigh for the 4th of July
Yes.
festival that we have for the fireworks that put off on their property?
Yes, it's very similar to that. I mean, they're simply saying, you know, if any person would become harmed by unloading those or shipping them, or any property would be damaged, that we would indemnify and hold them harmless. So they're allowing us to store it there for nothing. That's the least we can do.
And it is a three-way agreement with us, Republic Services, and the landowner.
They are also indemnifying as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, Bart?
This is resolution 2013-65. Mr. Jim and Angela?
Yes.
Mr. Jim?
Yes.
Mr. Forich?
Yes.
Mrs. Wolford?
Yes.
Mr. Baldner?
Yes.
Mr. Scapora?
Yes.
Mayor Griffin?
Yes.
Vote is 7 yes.
Motion carried, thank you.
That concludes the action items under the various departments, Madam Mayor, members of council.
And unfinished business. Anybody have anything to discuss? Unfinished business?
Mayor,
Yes.
if I might, congratulations to the 3 winning candidates in last Tuesday's election. The voters have spoken, and they have chosen you to lead us for the next 4 years. Your efforts in governing Latrobe will have my unequivocal support. The path upon which you choose to embark will determine this city's future. It is your good fortune that you have excellent leaders. Our mayor-elect, Rosie Walford, has proven leadership abilities. She is smart, well-spoken, and is dedicated to no agenda other than the success of our town. I consider this council's crowning achievement to be the hiring of our city manager, Alex Graziani. He is intelligent, fearless, and will outwork anyone. His only interest is to see Latrobe flourish. I count Alex and Rosie among my friends and urge you to give them your unbridled support. I also want to thank Mayor Barb in the completion of her term. May she have a happy and healthy retirement. A special thanks to Stuffy and Richard. We had spent these last 4 years together. We came in together and we're going out together. And finally, I'd like to thank the voters for electing me to 2 terms. I will always consider an honor and a privilege to have served the people of this great little town, our home. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken. Anybody else on unfinished business? Okay, new business.
Madam Mayor, there are 2 items. They're both simple motions under the new business portion. The first motion would read, I move we authorize the city secretary to advertise for applicants for vacancies on boards, authorities, and commissions. It's that time of year again.
Can I have a motion?
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Kapur, second.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Forrest, any questions or discussion? Questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nay. Motion carried. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, members of council, there's also a second motion on the agenda, and that motion results from the fact that Ms. Wolford has been elected mayor and will commence her term next year. That in turn will create a vacancy on her seat on city council. Therefore, the motion would read, I move we authorize the city secretary to advertise for a vacancy on city council as a result of the election of council member Wolford to the office of mayor. The Home Rule Charter, once a vacancy occurs, sets forth certain procedures, one of which is to provide notice to the citizens of filing an application, if you will, if they choose to seek that seat.
Okay, may I have a motion?
I so move, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Ballneri, second, please.
I'll second.
Mr. Scapora. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And under my report, I have some updates related to budget. Thank you, Mr. Bolton. I'll have to get you for the budget committee. You certainly have a grasp of the predicament we're in. Since 2006, this city hemorrhaged with overspending related to its budget. It raised taxes, fees, and revenues almost every year, but still continue to do that. That, quite frankly, is kind of the way local governments are designed to fail in Pennsylvania. There's a long line of local governments from some of our largest cities, including Pittsburgh and the state capital, to some of our smaller towns around western Pennsylvania particularly, who are finding the same scenario where over time they can no longer continue the same level of services. And Mr. Bolton's point has always been well taken and been a concern of mine, and I appreciate that. To that end, we're trying to get the budget moved up a little earlier this year. I have about 30 or 35 copies of the budget narrative and a similar amount of a long spreadsheet detailing every budget line item for revenue and expenditures. The budget contemplates 2 options or 2 scenarios. As was noted, there will be a new council with 3 new members in January and a 4th who will join after the vacation of the seat in January, Ms. Walford, to become mayor. So quite frankly, it's not only the most challenging budget that you may have. Again, Mr. Bolton pointed out, we have the godsend of the hailstorm that really enabled us to increase our general fund balance, but it also demonstrated to us that with good management, there's room to grow that transfer station, and without very little expenditure of resources, increase our net revenues, which will diversify our city's revenues and make us less reliant on taxes. The city right now gets about 60% or less of its money from local taxes. The other 40% comes from state and federal support, as well as primarily the transfer station. Transfer station's nearly 30% of the revenue comes from sanitation and the garbage bills for residential and commercial customers, as well as the sanitation at the transfer station at operation. So what we're going to do is we're going to advertise in the paper, we're going to post the budget online, we're going to make the budget available at the work session in November. I hope we have a line-by-line discussion about how to best manage and adopt the budget, so that in December 9th at that meeting, we can adopt the budget for 2014 and begin to forge a path ahead. Future budgets not only have to do well on the transfer station and the sanitation, but we need to do better at payment in lieu of taxes and work with the hospital, the Delphi, and other nonprofits, where I use that term, to seek payments in lieu of the real estate tax that they don't have to pay.
Madam Mayor, the Budget Committee currently consists of you and who? You and you? I was wondering if perhaps, since Mr. Baldneri has been our Budget Committee for the past 4 years, and he's going to be leaving, that maybe someone else might be interested in doing that. Mike, I was thinking, I'm looking at you. And thinking maybe if it's at the mayor's pleasure, the two of you might be able to work on this budget so that you have you have an understanding what he's been looking at for the last 4 years. I'm sure you do anyways, and then my plan hopefully is to put together committees next year that really are tasked at following this on a month-to-month basis.
I would volunteer to be on that committee.
One more thing, Barb. Mr. Bolton, I'd like you to take your act to the school board sometime. I think you could give them a pretty good dose of reality with a budget 10 to 12 times greater than ours and a propensity to raise taxes every year.
Okay, so that'll be Kenny and Mike.
But to be clear, all council members will be.
Yeah. They're
We're all
all
responsible and involved in it, but
The committee has different details.
committees tend to look at things more detailed and it can't be just a one-time look-see kind of thing. And if you have committees set up.
If you have committees set up that are looking at it on a monthly basis going forward, so some of our new council members might want to think about what committee you want to serve on.
And while we're talking about that, I think that's correct. When we have a budget, we need to have a report on it monthly, where we are versus actual versus paper budget, and where we are actually at it. And I'd also like to see us change our policy in the very near future so that any item that is not budgeted, let's say, furniture and carpeting for the Park and Rec building that was the offices up here, an unbudgeted item, if that's an unbudgeted item, it needs to be brought to council first before we spend a lot of money to furnish and carpet
I agree.
a piece of this property that's not budgeted. And I think that has to happen first before checks written.
What'd you say?
We didn't do the furniture, we did the carpet of our building.
I was just making an example.
Betty, you have anything else? Okay, just on mine, basically, the first thing is I want to thank all veterans. I was at the parade, of course, yesterday, and that's just wonderful. It was a little nippy, but I had something in my head, I would have been smarter. But definitely want to thank them for all they do and what they still do for us. I want to thank the fire department, the police department. I really do believe in all that they do, and we need them. We don't need to get rid of any of them. And I want to thank to Ken for all his comments, and thanks to Ken. Well, like I say, the four of us who come on together: Stephen, myself, Richard, and Ken. So, and thanks, and I'll say general thanks in December, but we need to get moving. So I'll stop now. Okay, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Second. First second.